Justin, tell me your experiences with college.
Gotcha. So I did 2 years up in Oregon, was booted out of school there. I would say I fired them. They would say they fired me. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Anyways, came back to Houston, tail between my legs. Went back to school, started off at the community college level, then went to University of Houston, finished up with my master's in accounting, and then essentially went into business for myself. But the takeaway from all of this is that if I had to do it again, I would definitely do it slightly differently. And I also wanted to kind of throw out there, if I was, talking to, I have no children I'm aware of, but if I had children, I would say like, listen, college isn't necessarily what it's, I think, cracked up to be. Particularly, I don't think it's how the older generations see it, or it's changed since then.
So what are you doing now, Justin? So you majored in accounting, and that's where you got your master's in. So are you an accountant? What do you do, Justin?
Gotcha. So I guess you could say fundamentally, I work in real estate, which is just to say, we put deals together, find stuff to buy, and manage properties. Accounting is definitely a big part of what I do. It definitely helps me. I could do what I do without the accounting. Don't get me wrong, and I could do what I do without going to school. And in hindsight, and this is the thing that I don't know how to say this nicely because I was very fortunate where I have no student debt. Not everyone can say that. But in hindsight, what I would have done differently is I would have maxed out my community college credits while I was in high school. Instead of doing AP, I would have done this thing where you can basically, in Texas, you can take courses at the community college level, right? You can transfer up to 60 hours from the community college to any state Texas or any public state Texas school. Then you knock out the next 60 hours of your undergraduate, roll into your master's if that's what you want to do, and then go on. But this is the key thing: the reason someone's going to school, I fear nowadays they go to school just to go to school. They treat it as an ends, not as a means. If you're going to school because you want to do something, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a petroleum engineer or whatever, right? Great. There's this, you're doing something that's hard because nobody else wants to do it. But if you're going to school, blowing a bunch of money, taking out loans to get a degree that you really don't need, and it's not really going to pay the bills, you're just going to saddle yourself with debt and this useless liability. Anyways, Josh, that's kind of my take.
Mhm.
Do you want to maybe
I think people are going to college to figure stuff out. They don't know what they're just getting out of high school. They don't know what they want to do, and they're going to college because they think that's where they're going to find what they want to do. And maybe, but what what where are you going? You're going from high school where you're taking classes, you're getting taught to regurgitate information and push it back on tests, and your your results are based upon a test that is based upon the knowledge that you can remember. You don't take tests based on what you know, it's based on what you can remember. And
you
there's
regurgitate?
that's what I really hate about the school system. And then you're just going to that same environment. You're not being taught how to solve problems. You're just being wired so you can be a worker. That's all you're doing. And if you're I don't think that's a bad thing. If you find a skill that you are really good at that is say like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, but a lot of people are going to college where they don't know what they want to do, and it's fine. No one knows what they want to do. I don't know what I want to do. I'm sure Justin doesn't even know what he wants to do. You're still figuring it out, but I think you can find your time more wisely is what I'm saying. So I'm someone who I just graduated high school last year. I am not going to college. I got very lucky to find an incredible mentor who is paying me to work for him. So I moved across the country, who I don't have to worry about funding. I have my money situation taken care of, which is I know I'm in a very fortunate situation, but you also put yourself in these situations. You're just a result of your past practices. And if you're practicing the right like you're not going to go to a football game without practicing at all. Your team is good because you guys practice throughout the summer, and that you kind of have to work towards your result.
Yeah, and so here's kind of the big thing. So in my role, I do have to deal with hiring and firing. That is to say, I have underlings, that work for me that basically take care of the bloody work or that kind of thing. But generally, when I'm looking to bring someone
Okay.
on, I kind of view school as a negative, and here's why. I'm convinced there's a reason. Or back up, they put a square cap on people's round head when they graduate, and I'm convinced it's the elites, mocking us, saying how they've completely warped and distorted, people's perception and viewpoints of the world.
I would disagree with that completely. I think that, and most people would call you crazy, and they're probably already
They do.
hopped off the YouTube video. But
Comment below.
what I what I do think is important is people are going to college to find purpose. And I think if you're going to go in massive amounts of debt to find your purpose, I think you could just
Whoa,
use
whoa,
that
whoa,
time more
whoa,
wisely
whoa.
by
Yeah,
wait,
yeah, yeah.
1 second, Justin, by figuring that out on your own. So let's say I got very lucky and I just got this job like a month and a half ago, not even. So if that didn't happen, I was searching for someone to work for. I was searching actively for, say, a mentor of sorts or something that I could do on my own. As you know, we're actively talking about trading or other things. What I most likely would have done, I would have just uh, backpacked across like South America. I would have found somebody to work for or just lived on my own in a foreign country for a while, backpacking, living off scraps, and just trying to figure it out. Now, I'm not doing that right now, but I don't plan on working for anyone for a long period of time. I plan on starting stuff of my own. And you're not going to, I don't think you really have an edge in that field unless you're really throwing yourself in the deep end. And I don't think a lot of people actually want to own businesses or hire people or really be in a difficult situation where you have to solve problems all day. But there are people who do. And a lot of people, they don't even really want to go to college, but their parents are really just having a great degree of impact, saying, because I think it's more important that the parents of these children are raising their children that if you want to get a good job, you have to go to college. You you go to college so you can get a good job after college, and then you can raise a family and live that the American dream, which maybe was the American dream in the 50s, but I don't know if that's anyone really wants that lifestyle. I don't really want that lifestyle. Maybe you do, but there are some statistics showing that like 30 to 50% of people fresh out of college are working minimum wage jobs. So let's say you spend 4 years going to college, you're 50 to $200,000 in debt, and then you just go back to working, you go back to living at home with your parents and working at McDonald's. You're no better off, and you're $200,000 in debt.
Yeah. As they're fond of saying in real estate, the only thing worse than no deal is a bad deal. And I think if you were to go back to, the era of the boomers or the era of, the GI generation, whatever, right? School then I think was a very different proposition than it was today. It cost much less. I think you got much more. And nowadays, like people just go because they think it's expected. It's just a bunch of, I hate to use the word blendings, but for some things, especially the hard sciences, STEM, I think it makes sense. But for everything else, look, the reason you're going to school ultimately, and assuming that, and I say this, assuming you're not some like 60-year-old retiree looking to go back to study philosophy or literature, and there's nothing wrong with that, just to be clear. My point is that like if you're in your late teens, you just came out of high school or whatever, right, or you're in your early 20s, you're trying to figure stuff out, as you will always be trying to figure stuff out. The point is like you want to like figure out how to be useful to someone, and it's true, college can help you be useful if you do something hard. But I think what's more important to that is that you've got to. It is by no means the only path to, I think, success. And I think people default to thinking it is the only path to success. So Josh, when I met you in Miami at the what was it, at the Gammons thing, Rebel Capitalist Live or whatever.
Yeah, the Rebel Capitalist Live meetup. I was still in high school, I think, at the time.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Is that you had the brains, and more importantly, you had the gumption to go through and like break them all and say, well, listen, I happen to like, I don't mean to put thoughts in your head or words in your mouth, but like I happen to like macro or whatever. Right? I'm gonna go check this out and see what's there. How many other, say for one other, or backup, from my recollection, only like one other person that you and I both met were the only like high schools or like like a sophomore or younger from the college.
Yeah, he was 21. But he's in college right now. We're still in contact, but he's like an engineer, and he's an incredibly bright fella. But keep going.
Yeah. So, anyways, the point from that is that like a huge part of it is just kind of being in the right place at the right time, and it's just I love being a contrarian. I think you do as well. And for God's sakes, if everyone's doing something, if everyone's in a trade, maybe not the best place to be unless you have some edge. I don't have an edge. I don't think you have an edge either in this. And currently, everyone's in college right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not someone who's against college. I am actually completely for college. I think it is a great tool. I would not want a, let's say I had a severe brain damage. I would not want my doctor operating on me of someone who just kind of did right it. I learned everything from online YouTube books and stuff like that. I would want someone to have the proper training at college with the
whoa.
right medical.
Yeah, but see, this is a really important thing, and this is, I think, the fallacy of the college thing, whatever, right? You might have someone who, like you, who never went to school, started from the ground up. Maybe it was like like an auto mechanic or some weird ass thing like that. But the point is that through fate and circumstance, this person just suddenly, got underneath a doctor or whatever, right? And then, after doing this for 20, 30 years, he discovered that, you had this one skill that you would never think would translate well to, brain surgery, but suddenly he's really, really, really good. I mean, I can give you an example from the airlines. One of the turnaround CEOs of Continental way back in the day was a guy named Gordon Bethune, no formal education. But without him, the airline would have basically gone, as they say, take a uniform. But the thing is, Bethune came from the ground up. I think he was a mechanic, or he was very, very blue collar. Is the takeaway? No formal education on that front. And I will also add, there are two people that immediately come to mind that led both Continental and Combined United with incredibly strong resumes, top of the line pedigree when it came to education. The first one is banned by an act of Congress from ever running an airline again because of how badly he screwed it up the first time. And the second one basically had to resign in disgust. So my point is that if you want to look at credentials, if you want to look at, the Harvard, Princeton graduate type things, I don't know. Just be careful. Be careful.
Yeah. And what is my goal? I want to learn as much as possible. And I noticed that school, I was not only not learning anything, but I felt dumber because you're completely scored based on your test grades, and your test grades give you your grade, which your grades, they don't mean anything. And all you're taught is you go to school to get good grades, and get good grades on your tests, but your tests are simply they don't matter. Does your test in marine biology where you're trying to memorize planktons really actually matter? When do you need that? I love learning about things that affect my life. And you can learn anything on YouTube, online, and on books. I can assure you, if there's something that you want to learn, you can learn it on YouTube. And you can learn it by absolute experts in the field.
Yeah, and let me add two other things from that too. Go back and look at long-term capital management. When it blew up, you had some of the smartest guys in the business, and they basically, it's not that they were smart, it's just that they weren't wise. Plenty of smarts, not enough wisdom. The way I like to think of it is, imagine you're in the Titanic or whatever, right? You hit the iceberg, the thing starts to sink. You go find, all the engineers and all the nautical guys that built the ship, the best minds in the business, tons of degrees, whatever, right? You sit down to them and they prepare the reports. They say, okay, well, listen, we're taking on water at, this percentage. The ship can only stay afloat for the following, I don't know, like an hour and a half. When the thing breaks apart, here's exactly how it's going to break apart. It'll break apart in these areas, blah, 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 blah. And you have all this technical data. And the data is correct. What they're telling you is true. But here's the thing. You say, okay, guys, listen, I appreciate what you're telling me. And yes, this is kind of interesting to know. But if the ship's going to sink, I know the ship's sinking already, just as an ignorant fool myself. The only thing I care about is, how do I get off the ship? I don't necessarily need to know how it's going to break apart. I don't necessarily need to know how long the ass is going to be bobbing up and down in the water. I just need to know how to get off the ship in a way that doesn't put me in the icy cold Atlantic water or whatever, because that's going to die. I'm going to die if I do that. And this is, I think, the problem that the overeducated people run into, where they're incredibly intelligent, but they can't answer the relevant questions. In this case, well, how do you get off the ship? Anyways, silly story.
Yeah, no common sense. And then, so now what do you do? All right, you're someone who's struggling. You're either in college, you don't like it, and you want to drop out. You're someone who's still in high school, and you're not sure. You don't really want to go to college. You don't know if it's the best road. What do you do if you don't go to college? Do you have any advice for them, Justin?
Oh, I would say be useful. Look, in life, don't get me wrong, It helps to be rich. It helps to be good looking. It helps to be witty. There are many things in life that, it definitely, you can get some boosts along the way. But if you can only be one thing in life and one thing only, be useful. Because as long as you're useful, many sins will be forgiven, many transgressions overlooked, and so on. So
How does one become useful?
you become useful by figuring how to do stuff that nobody else wants to do. So in other words, pick like the hardest thing that's out there, right? Or the thing that you perceive that you actually might be able to figure out how to do that nobody else wants to do. And hint, the reason nobody else wants to do it is because it probably looks like hard work, or it's going to be hard to learn, or it's going to be a pain in the whatever, right? If you can figure out how to do that and do that well, you'll be fine. That's the key thing. Figure out something that you can do well that nobody else does. Do it.
And then that comes to the problem where people are like, well, I don't know how to do anything. And that's where I want to go to college. And I want to learn how to do something that I really love. I would say that's probably not the best strategy. What I did is I was in the same boat. I was in COVID, March 2020. I was like, what do I want to do? I know I'm not happy doing nothing. I need to find a purpose. I need to find a drive to where I really want to work. So you just kind of start flipping books. You just start reading. No one likes reading. When we live in the world of technology and we get instant gratification all the time, it's really great to take a step back. You need to put down the technology once in a while, start doing random shit. I tried probably 15 different things that I hated. And you try, you fail, you realize, okay, you know what, this probably isn't for me. And then you move on to the next thing. All right, you try, you fail, you move on to the next thing until you find something that you really like. And I found something that I love and I want to continue to pursue. And then you find the experts in that field and you try and I just really wanted to work for someone that I truly respected. And that is what I've done.
Yeah. And what also at that front too is that like the individual will probably have an idea of what he or she likes to do, whatever, right? So that's your starting point or whatever, right? And once you find that, if you kind of start trying to find like other like-minded people, like that's probably a really if the question is, what do I do to find my purpose? Well, figure out what it is that you like to do. So start there. Like macro would be something.
Maybe find out what you don't like to do, because it's a lot easier to find out what you hate than what you like.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, like, so the guys are going to get this, but like, if you're trying to pick up a chick at a bar, all you need is one yes. But before you get to that one yes, you're probably going to get a few no's, and maybe more than a few no's. It can be a little disheartening at times. But the key thing is, it comes back to this, right? You got to put yourself out. You've got to realize that you're going to fail, whatever, right? And that's normal. That's fine, whatever, right? But if you don't take the risk, there's no way that you've got to have some agency is what I'm trying to say, right? And yes, that means risk and that means failing. But the thing is, if you figure out what you want to do, good start. Good start.
I would say the most important thing is you have to open and be willing to fail. If you're not, then I don't think that you ever have a chance of succeeding. Just because I don't know a single successful person that have gone from zero to where they are without there's no linear progression everywhere. It is a continuous flow of ups and downs, and you have to experience those downs if you're going to make it back up. So fail, get back at it. And maybe college is for you, maybe it's not, but don't think that you have to go to college to succeed. Justin, he got kicked out. He's doing very well for himself. He went back, but so what, I just graduated from high school. I'm not going to college. I have an incredible job right now, but I'm not going to work here forever. I don't plan on working here for more than a few years because I want to soak up all the information I can from this person and then find out what I can do on my own. Maybe find someone else to work for. My 20s, I plan on spending them learning as much as possible and finding incredible people. So we'll see how that takes me.
Yep. Very good, Josh.